Okay, so I don't have a soils tape measure, but I have a tape measure here that'll give us a little bit of an idea. So let's first look at the forest floor, at the organic horizons. Remember, we have our litter layer, which is material that's completely undecomposed and in its original state. The F layer, the fermented layer, that's material that has started decomposing, but we can still kind of tell what it was. We can recognize individual fibers, for example. And below that we have the H horizon, or humic, or humus horizon. And that's organic material that has completely broken down and is just kind of a black, sticky, greasy layer where we can't detect any fibers or anything. So if I look here, I'd say our litter layer is maybe about 1.5 centimeters. If we look at it, it's mostly dead needles and some dead mosses. Then the F layer, the fermented layer, I think we've got maybe about 1.5 centimeters. So that's what this looks like. So it's kind of it's relatively loose. It's not especially matted. It's a lot of it is broken down, but I can still tell that there's fibers of various things in there. And then below that, I don't really see too much of a humus layer. Maybe there's a centimeter or so, but we break pretty quickly. I start feeling mineral soil. So maybe there's a centimeter of H. Here's an interesting thing. Do you notice? I don't know if you can see this very well. I just came across some black charcoal. So that's evidence to me that there was a fire here previously. And this mineral soil here is really enriched with organic matter. It's really dark in color, but I don't know if you can see the grit, but I can see a fair amount of grit there, and I can feel it as well. I can feel the organic matter and mineral soil. So this is an AH horizon, an A horizon that is humic. And I think it's a very, very deep AH horizon. Because I see there's a few variations in color, but they aren't necessarily consistent the whole way through. Let's look at the texture. I'm going to grab a bit here, and I'm going to get my soil key out. All right, I've got my soil texture key. It's section 919. So let's look at the procedure. It says, crush a small handful of soil in the hand and remove coarse fragments that's greater than 2 millimeters in diameter. This is going to be a little tricky now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get all of them because there's quite a few in here. But I can do my best, because when you're trying to figure out the texture, if you have a lot of coarse fragments in there, it makes it very challenging. Okay. So I've picked out most of the coarse fragments from this sample of the AH horizon. I definitely haven't gotten all of them. I think I would need a sieve to really get it, because it's supposed to be all particles that are 2 millimeters or greater, and there's a lot in there. But we'll move on and kind of acknowledge that it might not stick together as well as it would if I had taken those out. So if we look at procedures for hand texturing, it says organic matter test. Well-decomposed organic matter imparts silt-like properties in the soil. It feels floury when dry and slippery or spongy when moist. I definitely did not feel very much organic matter, not much of a humic horizon. I should say, so there wasn't a humic horizon. There definitely is organic matter in here. I can feel in between, among the mineral grains, I'm feeling some greasiness or some stickiness. So the graininess test, rub the soil between your fingers. If sand is present, it will feel grainy. It feels a little bit grainy, but I think a lot of that is still just those coarse fragments that I haven't gotten rid of. So there's a little bit of graininess, but I'm going to say not very much. certainly less than 50% of the sample. Okay, and then the moist cast test. Compress some moist but not wet soil. So here's the trick. I need to use my squirt bottle to get the soil a little bit wet enough that it sticks together. Okay. So compress some moist soil by clenching it in your hand, and that's called forming a cast. And then we're going to see how durable this cast is. Okay. So it's sticking together a bit. I don't know if you noticed that part. It's definitely, yeah, I'm definitely able to get a pretty decent cast here. It's breaking up a little bit, but it's sticking together pretty well. Okay. And then the stickiness test. Wet the soil thoroughly and compress between the thumb and forefinger. And then I have to see how. I'm going to get a little bit wetter here. And I'm supposed to see how sticky this is. And again, it's a little bit hard because I can still feel those coarse fragments. There's definitely some stickiness there. And then for I'm going to skip the taste test. I don't really feel like putting the soil in my mouth. For the soapiness test, so I'm rubbing my fingers over here. I've got it very wet. I can still feel the grit in there, so there's definitely some grit. But I'm also feeling a little bit soapy. It feels like there's a little bit of soapiness here as well. Okay, and then lastly, the worm test. The worm test might be tricky because I still didn't do a great job getting all those fine particles out. But in the worm test, we get the soil kind of wet, and we just try to roll a worm like it's modeling clay or plasticine. And I'm having trouble getting a worm. I can get a little bit. So there's definitely a fair amount of grit in here. Some of it is still might be coarse fragments. Some of it might be a little bit smaller than 2 millimeters. So I'm able to get a little bit of a worm. So basically with the worm test, and you can actually probably see that grit, so I still didn't get all that grit in there, and you can imagine that grit makes it a lot harder for this to stick together. So the idea is that the more clay there is in the soil, the better this soil is going to stick together, and the thinner worm you're going to be able to roll it into. Okay, so let's work through our soil texturing key, and I think I might ask you at each of these steps to, based on what you've seen me do here, give your answer. So we're going to look at the soil texturing key. So at start, greater than 50% sand or less than 50% sand. And I said this is definitely less than 50% sand. Okay. So then, moderate cast, easily handled, non to slightly sticky, or strong cast, very easily handled, sticky, or very strong cast. I would say that our cast was probably, well, which of those do you think? I'll pause and let you choose what you think. Okay. I think it was a moderate cast. Okay? So probably on that end. It wasn't really easy to handle, but it stayed together pretty well. So then our next question is the taste test, soapiness test, and worm test. Was it very gritty and very soapy? Was it gritty to very gritty, soapy to very soapy, no worm, or 3 millimeters diameter? And then for loam, could we get a 3 millimeter diameter worm? So we did get a worm here. I think it's possible I would have been able to get a thinner worm if we had picked out all those fine fragments, but I'd say that our worm is greater than 3 millimeters in diameter here. So I'm going to call this soil a silt. I'd say this is pretty gritty. A little bit soapy. I think we have more than 20% sand here, so I don't think it's going to be silt. I think I'd probably go for a silt loam on this. And I'm not a soil scientist, so I might be a little bit wrong on this. Okay, let's keep looking at our AH horizon. Note that it's a little bit of a different color here, but it's a pretty similar color all the way down. So I think we pretty much have an AH horizon all the way down here. I don't think we even got into the B horizon. When I go way down in there, the soil, partly it's more waterlogged now, but it's definitely it's finer in texture down at the bottom. If we do, I don't have time to pull all of the coarse fragments out of here, but if we do a worm from that soil, it's definitely sticking together better. I think if I removed all of the grit, I could get a pretty good worm here. So we've got a slightly coarser textured soil up on the top and a slightly finer textured soil as we get down, further down. Oh yeah, you can see that. Oops, I just lost a chunk of that. So that's kind of interesting. I'm not really doing a great job of hand texturing this, but you can see the difference. Here, I'm going to set this aside and just work on this small part. So that soil from deeper in the soil pit. I think if I really worked at this, I could probably get that 3 millimeter worm. Just about. Okay. And this soil feels much more clay-like. So that's kind of interesting. I think what's going on here is that some of those very fine particles, those clay particles, are eluviating from these upper horizons and illuviating in these lower horizons. But it's still still pretty gritty too. Okay. I think if we were to keep digging here and eventually hit our B horizon, I know just from this area that we have a lot of podzol, so I think we would hit a BH horizon. But here we have a really deep AH horizon, and we might even have, we might split it up into different AH horizons based on the differences in texture. So I don't know if we had a chance to, if I showed you where we are, but we're on a relatively steep slope here, and we're basically at the bottom of the slope. So we're in an area, I'll squeeze in here. We're basically at the bottom of the slope, so we're in an area where the soil is gathering. We're at a lower slope position. So as erosion happens, fine soil particles are being washed down the hillside, and they're accumulating here. And that's why we have this really, really deep AH horizon. And let's see how deep we are on the hole here. So we've dug down about 55 centimeters. So we have, I'd say that we have an AH horizon here. And the last step here now, I'm going to fill in the soil pit and then put the forest floor back on it. Note that when I was working with the soil and digging with it, I tried to steer clear of the fresh soil that I had dug out. I didn't I made sure not to step on it or pack it down so that I can put it back in the soil. So that's what I'm going to do now.